The hospital issued an urgent notice, and Chen hurried home to pack his clothes before rushing to the hospital. Before leaving, he instructed me to take good care of myself and warned that if he found out I was causing trouble at home again, he would deal with me severely. The words, "deal with me severely," scared me so much that I straightened up and gave him a military salute. "Leader, I guarantee to complete the mission." To be honest, it's quite embarrassing. At 26 years old, I still get spanked sometimes. I really can't face my ancestors in Jiangdong. Actually, I secretly called my mom to complain about Chenji's domestic violence. People say sons-in-law are afraid of their mothers-in-law, but in our family, they gang up on me. Right after I made the call, my mom told Chen about it and even told him to discipline me properly, saying that I had now learned to twist the truth and inform on others. This bad behavior must be stopped. I treat you like my real mom, but you treat me like a stepdaughter. As a result, that night, Chen disciplined me in another way. As for what method it was, I'll keep it to myself. It's quite embarrassing. In summary, I've concluded one thing. Never marry your neighbor, especially someone who has been excellent and flawless since childhood, basically someone who is always the model child in others' eyes. Chen and I are childhood friends, growing up together. He is 3 years older than me. When we were young, I always called him Chen in a sweet, childish voice. As we grew older, I became shy and couldn't bring myself to call him Chen anymore, so I started calling him Chen. The story of Chen and me goes back to when I was still in my mom's belly. When my mom was pregnant, my dad went on a business trip to Xinjiang. My parents had just gotten married and were living a frugal life. Going to Xinjiang wasn't as convenient as it is now. Once there, it was hard to stay in touch for a long time, but the benefits were good. One trip could be worth several years of work at the company. My mom and dad thought it was worth it, so they decided to tough it out for a year. Coincidentally, just after my dad left for Xinjiang, my mom found out she was pregnant. My mom, being quite tough on herself sometimes, didn't want my dad to come back from so far away and spend money, so she kept it a secret. Auntie Chen was a nurse at the hospital, and Uncle Chen worked with my dad. They all lived in company housing. Over time, Auntie Chen got to know my mom well and often came to our house to take care of her. As my mom's belly grew, Chen would often place his little hand on her belly and talk to me in a sweet, childish voice. My mom said that during that time, I was quiet in her belly, but as soon as Chen came around, I would start rolling and flipping in her belly. Sometimes, I would even give him a high five through the belly. I wonder, was I captivated by his charm even back then? Chen took after his southern mother in appearance, with warm and gentle eyes, a delicate face, and a smile that exuded an indescribable charm. However, he inherited his northern father's tall and slender stature, standing as straight and tall as a poplar tree. I attended the affiliated middle school of the high school Chen went to. Every morning, Chen would wait for me on his bicycle. Sometimes, if I woke up late and didn't have time to tie my hair, I'd rush downstairs with my hair loose. Chen would always complain that I looked like a ghost while taking the hair tie off his wrist to tie my hair for me. His hair tying skills were much better than my mom's. Whenever my mom reached out her hand, my scalp would start to tingle, and I'd shout, "Mom, it hurts." My mom would always pinch me hard. "You brat, it hurts even before I touch you." When Chen tied my hair, I was never afraid because his hands were so gentle. He would always ask, "Does it hurt?" I would squint my eyes, enjoying it like a cat being petted, and shake my head, "No, it doesn't hurt." At that time, everyone in school knew that Chen had a younger sister like me. Every day at lunch in the school cafeteria, Chen would save the chicken leg on his plate for me. Sometimes, I'd act cute and say in a childish voice that my hand hurt, and I wouldn't even have to wash my plate. Chen would mostly just pinch my nose and say helplessly, "Little girl, you're always full of problems." Knowing I was just being lazy, he would still end up taking my plate and washing it. Later, I accidentally let it slip, and my mom found out I had been eating Chenji's chicken legs. She was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. I knew it. How could your body gain so much weight while eating the same cafeteria food? This wasn't really my fault. If I got a bit thinner, Chen would start reflecting on whether he was doing something wrong and blame himself. With him like that, how could I bear to stay thin? Thanks to Chen, I received many gifts back then, all from the high school girls who wanted to bribe me. Chocolates, snacks, little dolls. Those girls really went all out to chase Chen. I promised several girls to deliver their love letters to him, on the condition that it was kept secret. If I had put the same effort into studying, I might have gotten into Tsinghua University by now. At first, Chen thought I wrote the love letters, smiling with the corner of his mouth lifted. Little girl, writing love letters to your brother at such a young age. I thought he was mocking me and immediately blushed, muttering, I wouldn't write a love letter. These are from the high school girls. Then I handed all the love letters from my small backpack to him. After seeing the names on them, his brows furrowed into a line, and he said coldly, You collected them, you deal with them. I didn't expect Chen to refuse them, which worried me. If he didn't take them, I had to find a way to make him take them. Returning the gifts was out of the question, and I couldn't just throw the letters away. If they were discovered, I'd get another beating. Some of those girls were really tough characters. That day, I approached Chen with a smile, holding my workbook and asking for help with the problem. Chen looked at me suspiciously. Little girl, what are you up to? Smiling like a squirrel? I glanced in the mirror and realized with my large front teeth and chubby cheeks, I did look like a squirrel. I said, Chen, what could I be up to? Trying to outsmart you is like showing off in front of an expert. Expert. Not old, not old. I squatted down to massage his legs diligently and said, I'm here to ask about a problem. Go ahead, what's the problem? Then I spread out the workbook and seriously started asking about the problems. That day, I was so serious that I almost convinced myself. Finally, when Chen went to the bathroom, I quickly slipped the love letters into his books. Since there were several letters, it would be too obvious to put them all in one book, so I spread them out, one in each book. That night, Auntie Chen went to my mom, crying. She wiped her tears and said, What's the point of living with such a troublesome son? I'm not against him dating. But what does he do? Dates many girls at once, each book with a love letter, all with different names. He insists Ning Ning put them in, and now he's learned to lie. This brat is getting more rebellious. My mom treated Chen like her own son and watched him closely every day, like a wolf eyeing meat. She felt something was fishy about this. Later, during dinner, I couldn't withstand my mom's intimidation and confessed everything. As a result, my parents gave me a mixed beating, and I cried out loudly. In the past, whenever I cried, Chen would feel so sorry for me. My mom never succeeded in hitting me because Chen would always say, Auntie, hit me instead. Ning Ning is my sister, and it's my fault for not taking care of her. Could my mom hit him then? Of course not. This time, I cried so hard that my throat nearly broke, but Chen didn't even come out to check on me, his door tightly shut. After that, I realized that the smooth sailing I had enjoyed all those years was thanks to Chen. I learned never to offend Chen because otherwise, my mom would have no mercy on me. When I was in high school, Chen became the top student in the science stream and got into medical school. People always say that medical students are incredibly busy, but I didn't feel that way at all. When Chen went off to college, I felt quite down. After all, he had taken care of me a lot over the years. Without him around, I felt like a lost soul, lamenting my fate day in and day out. Because of this, my round face miraculously slimmed down to a pointed chin, and my looks improved. That's why they say chubby folks are full of potential, right? Before I could even boast for a few days, Chen returned. He attended a local university and originally lived on campus for convenience. Seeing me lose weight, he quickly moved back home, insisting on fattening me up again. I don't know why he was so persistent about making me gain weight. I dared not ask, nor did I dare to speak up. Later, during a history class, the teacher talked about anti-corruption efforts during the Qing dynasty. Generally, emperors wouldn't rush to clean up corrupt officials. When the sun ascended the throne and found the treasury empty, he would start cracking down on corrupt officials to replenish the treasury. The history teacher said, "Do you think anyone who becomes emperor is stupid?" Those corrupt officials were the fattened pigs the old emperor raised for his son. Reflecting on this, I couldn't help but feel like Chen was fattening me up like that pig. As it turned out, even the dumbest woman's intuition is always spot on. On the day of our wedding, I couldn't hold back and asked Chen, do you like chubby girls? Chen, with his distinct knuckles gripping a porcelain cup, took a sip of water and looked at me calmly. Not entirely. What do you mean, not entirely? Call me husband and I'll tell you. I blushed, feeling quite embarrassed. After much hesitation, I finally muttered, husband. Chen was pleased, sitting on the edge of the bed, holding my hand. I like you when you're chubby and I like you when you're slim. In that moment, I felt fireworks bursting in my heart, crackling and popping. Before I could fully rejoice, he suddenly chuckled, his expression mysterious. I can't let my well-cultivated cabbage be rooted up by pigs. And who would bother with a fattened pig? I covered my chest with my hand, pretending to be wounded, rolling around on the bed. He really was ruthless to prevent me from falling in love. Suddenly, I remembered my first love, which had been stifled in its cradle. I sneaked a glance at Chen and couldn't shake the feeling that his smile hid something sinister. In that moment, I truly felt like a fattened pig waiting to be slaughtered. Speaking of my stillborn first love, it was during my senior year of high school. That year, I studied intensively, and my chubby face miraculously slimmed down to a slender oval shape. My neck also elongated quite a bit, prompting friends to exclaim, "Ning Ning, turns out you've got a swan's neck." I wasn't particularly diligent as a student, relying more on a bit of cleverness rather than excelling academically. Compared to the entire school, I was just average. But once I entered senior year, that sense of tension naturally exploded within me. I felt like the lively classroom suddenly turned silent. Even during breaks, the entire senior class remained quiet, either studying or doing exercises. I was anxious, and my family shared in that anxiety too. Aunt Chen and my mom often brewed brain tonics for me. Though it didn't necessarily make me smarter, it did alleviate my occasional headaches, allowing me to stay up late and still attend school the next day. Chen would occasionally help me with tutoring sessions. Ironically, he seemed more nervous about my college entrance exams than I was. No, I should say, he wasn't even this nervous during his own college entrance exams. I remember, during breaks, he would take me to the badminton court to play. There was no sense of impending college entrance exams in his mind at all. I thought my senior year would be spent buried in books and exercises, but an unexpected event occurred. That unexpected event was Yishi. He transferred into our class from another, abandoning his pursuit of art and opting instead to join us. Yishi was an art student, often seen in a white t-shirt and light blue jeans neatly rolled at the cuffs. He was tall, handsome, and smiled with a charming curve on his lips. On his first day in our class, he caused quite a stir. After a week of silence, my desk mate, buried in his books, finally spoke to me. "Hey, Ning Ning, that transfer student is quite handsome." After class, a few girls quietly discussed the new transfer student, an art student who was tall. There was even a confession post dedicated to him on the school's forum. I got to know Yishi quite unexpectedly. Once, when the cafeteria was full and only a seat next to me was empty, he sat down beside me. Although we were in the same class, we rarely spoke. He struggled with his cultural subjects and focused diligently on his studies, making it difficult for him to socialize with new classmates. I didn't expect Yishi to initiate a conversation with me. He said, "I heard the top student in science at our school in previous years was your brother." "Yeah, not my real brother, but a neighbor." I replied casually, though I was actually quite unsettled inside. Up close, Yishi was indeed handsome, but he seemed warm and approachable, unlike Chen, who exuded an air of superiority that seemed to say, "You're not worthy of me, mere mortals." "Oh, my cultural studies aren't great. Could you help me?" He scratched his head shyly, his ears turning slightly red. During that semester of senior year, I made significant progress. Each time we had a test, I would move up several spots in the rankings, advancing from average to the top 10 in the entire school. Of course I can, I immediately agreed. But why not continue with your art studies? I injured my hand and can't draw anymore. His eyes carried a hint of sadness. Yishu was actually quite smart. He just lacked a solid foundation. Studying with him also helped reinforce my own basics, so it was a win-win situation. When Chen came back during breaks to tutor me, I also brought Yishi along. While in the car, I sent Chen a text. Chen, I've brought a classmate along. While you tutor me, could you also help him out? Chen, is it a guy or a girl? Feeling quite proud, I replied, it's a guy, incredibly handsome, our class's heartthrob. Chen, is that so? My hand trembled. After all these years, I knew Chen inside out, and he knew me just as well. I understood his every move, so when he replied with just, is that so? I sensed trouble. Me? Haha, of course, but you, Chen, are still the most handsome. Nobody can compare. Universally unbeatable #1. I wasn't exaggerating. In my heart, no one could compare to Chen, not even my future husband. During that tutoring session, all I remembered was Chen constantly picking on Yishi, just like how empresses might pick on concubines in the imperial palace. Though the problems were challenging, it was understandable that Yishi struggled with them. Yet, in Chen Ji's words, it became, you can't solve such a simple problem? Do you ever study? Just apply the formula, isn't that enough? Do you even pay attention in class? At one point, I went to the restroom. I don't know what Chen said to Yishi, but when I returned, Yishi's face was red with embarrassment, hastily packing his books and fleeing. Chen sat there like an elder, while Yishi looked like a bullied daughter-in-law. After that, Yishi visibly distanced himself from me, though he became even more diligent in his studies, striving relentlessly and steadily improving his grades. At the end of class, I often caught him glancing at me with a look of deep bitterness. On the day of college applications, I received a graduation gift from Yishi, a book titled The Moon and Sixpence, with a note inside saying, I'm sorry I couldn't be the best. Those words left me perplexed. Later, I couldn't help but ask Chen, what did you say to Yishi during the tutoring session? With your grades, even the well-cultivated cabbage I've raised dares to compete with me? Chen replied, suddenly looking at me with an unfriendly expression. Why are you suddenly asking about this? I was just curious. You little troublemaker, are you asking about other men now? After graduation, I didn't look for a job but became a full-time writer instead. This career choice had a lot to do with Chen. Once I got into college, I reverted to my carefree attitude. Coincidentally, one of my dorm mates was a novel enthusiast, and under her influence, I started reading novels too. At that time, youth pain literature was quite popular, love stories filled with gut-wrenching agony and intense emotions. The more tragic, the better. My dorm mate and I shared a common trait. We loved reading and reviewing angst-filled stories. If a story wasn't tragic, we'd give it a poor review. There's a saying that a real drama is a tragedy. So back then, my QQ status often changed to reflect the novels I was reading. Looking up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, tears streaming down my face. Where love has passed, the rest of life is ashes. I love you, so I hate you. Chen asked me on QQ if I was in love, and I quickly denied it. After reading those novels, I was immersed in my self-induced pain and couldn't even think about a real relationship. Moreover, at that time, girls didn't fancy sweet romances, but preferred tragic ones. I couldn't find anyone to share such an angst-filled love story with me. He asked, then what's with all those strange statuses? I replied, I copied them from novels. They're very popular. He doubted, what kind of weird novels are you reading? They have no taste. The next day, he sent me a few Jin Yong novels. After reading Jin Yong, I was completely captivated, especially by the line from Demigods and Semi-Devils, where Xiao Feng said after mistakenly killing Aju, "Since I have mistakenly killed Aju, I will never marry in this life. Aju is Aju, the only one in the world, for all eternity. Love should be that beautiful." After that, I started to fantasize about my own martial arts world. A hero who robs from the rich to help the poor, roaming the world with wine and songs, encountering his beloved girl, falling deeply in love, ending in laughter and tears. My first novel was based on Chen. When it was published online, the male protagonist's likable character gained a small following. When readers asked me which male lead was my favorite, I always answered it was the one from my first novel. Many readers agreed with me, and I often smiled without explaining the reason. No one knew that the character was based on Chen. It was my secret, unknown to anyone. During the National Day holiday, our school had a short break. My roommates, some friends, and I organized a mountain climbing trip. Maybe because I caught a chill in the mountains during the day, I developed a high fever by the time we returned to the dormitory at night. My roommates struggled to take me to the infirmary, but I refused to get an injection. The sight of a needle brought tears to my eyes, and I wouldn't cooperate. In a daze, I instinctively called out, "Chen." I rarely got sick, but when I did, even my mom couldn't comfort me. Only Chen could make me obediently take medicine and get injections without a fuss. My mom would roll her eyes, feeling like she had raised an ungrateful child. Aunt Chen would laugh and say, "Looks like you're destined to be my daughter-in-law. Otherwise, what would you do when you're sick?" My roommate used my fingerprint to unlock my phone and found Shinji's number. When he answered, the whole room was stunned. "Oh my, his voice is so nice, like a deep bass." "Exactly, it's making my ears tingle. He must be super handsome." "Ning Ning, you're so selfish, hiding him all this time." "Forget it, with a voice like that and looks to match, no way he's still available." After learning I was sick, Chen took a bus overnight to come see me, and his appearance left my roommates in awe. Yes, there are indeed people in this world you can envy from head to toe. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was Chen sitting by my bedside, and tears immediately welled up in my eyes. I was attending school in a neighboring city, away from home for the first time, and I felt a bit homesick. "Why are you crying? Are you feeling unwell?" he asked. I shook my head and said, feeling aggrieved, "I just miss Dad and Mom, Aunt Chen, Uncle Chen, and you." His eyes softened considerably at my words. He touched my forehead and told me to listen to the doctor. Chunji's phone rang. It was a call from a girl. Because I was close, I could clearly hear her shy voice on the other end. "Senior, I made you a bento and left it on your desk." Chunga glanced at me and walked to the window. He said, "Thank you, but I'm in a neighboring city and might not be able to come back. Also, I've told you before, I already have someone I like." My heart skipped a beat. He has someone he likes. Who could be so lucky to be favored by Chenga? She must be exceptional, someone as out of reach as Chenga himself. But if Chenga is dating, our relationship would surely become distant. I'm not his real sister, after all. Even if he wanted to be nice to me, his future girlfriend wouldn't be happy about it. Yes, I'm not his real sister, so why is he so good to me? Could it be that Chenga likes me? My mind started to wander, but looking at Shinji's face, which seemed to say, "No one is worthy of me," I quickly dismissed the idea. Chenga liking me? I didn't even dare to think about it. Suddenly, the joy of seeing Chenga turned into sadness. I couldn't help but think of the line from Demigods and Semi-Devils. "Aju is Aju, the only one in the world for all eternity. In this vast world, for all eternity, there's only one Chenga." After Chenga left, my roommates asked about my relationship with him. I said, "He's just my neighbor's brother." One roommate said, "Oh, come on, your neighbor's brother? Do you know how much PDA you two showed us? We're fed up with your lovey-dovey acts." Feeling embarrassed, I said, "He's just my neighbor's brother. Stop overthinking it." "How old are you? Would you let any random guy in our class carry you on his back?" I shuddered at the thought and shook my head. "No." But you seem perfectly happy letting your neighbor's brother do it. I argued. He's close to me. But you're in your 20s now. Even your real brother wouldn't do that, right? I thought for a moment and realized they might be right. Then my roommates started analyzing. Exactly, your neighbor's brother definitely has ulterior motives. No way. Why would Chinga be interested in someone as ordinary as me? But the thing is, there are no goddesses around here, just ordinary people like us. He can't stay single forever. So, he's just settling for me? I couldn't believe it. Exactly, one roommate said, instead of analyzing here, why don't you ask him? If you don't make a move, you might lose him. He's a gem. Plus, he's studying medicine. Just imagine how great that would be. I don't dare. I can't even imagine Chingo liking me. But that day, those heartless friends used my computer to log into my QQ and confess to Chingo on my behalf while I was showering. And then Chingo accepted. To this day, I haven't dared to tell Chingo the truth, that I wasn't the one who confessed. Otherwise, I'd be in big trouble. After all, Chingo is someone who values his pride a lot. After marrying Chingo, I thought I had escaped my mom's clutches. Little did I know, living with Chingo meant being under constant surveillance. Before, I could occasionally sneak a spicy snack, but after marrying Chingo, I didn't even dare to think about it. Every time we went to the supermarket, I'd always find myself in the spicy food section, swallowing my saliva and looking at him with pleading eyes, muttering, I want to buy it. Chingo would always refuse me without mercy. No. Whenever he wasn't paying attention, I'd sneak a few packs of spicy snacks into the cart. But Chingo would always find them and put them back on the shelf, without hesitation. The most dramatic incident was when I was holding a pack of spicy snacks, and he tried to snatch it from my hands. I refused to let go, squatting down and being dragged several meters by him. In the end, I still didn't succeed. After my classmates and friends learned I had married a doctor, they often messaged me on WeChat, asking me to consult Chingo about their symptoms and find out what illnesses they might have. After a while, I began to get paranoid myself. One time, I video called Chingo and told him, Chingo, today I feel chest tightness, difficulty breathing, and there's a constant chill on my back. Am I dying of some serious illness? Chingo was silent for a long time, then looked at me like I was an idiot and said, you put your thermal shirt on backward. It's choking your neck. Today is the first day of Chen Ji's business trip. I bought a large bag of snacks from the supermarket that I hadn't eaten in a long time. Chingo called me in the evening, asking if I had eaten on time. Of course, I hadn't. I was full from eating snacks, but I certainly didn't dare to tell the truth. I immediately said, yes, I did. Chingo asked, what did you eat? I randomly made up a few dishes. Chingo seemed satisfied on the other end of the phone and continued chatting about other things. After a short while, he suddenly asked again, what did you say you ate today? In that moment, I knew I was done for. After being scolded by Chingo, he insisted that I go back to my parents' house. I didn't want to. I had finally gotten a few days to myself and didn't want to go back. After a lot of begging and almost swearing on the sky, he reluctantly agreed. Before hanging up, he said, if I find out you're not taking care of yourself, just wait until I get back to deal with you. On the second day of Chen Ji's business trip, I played games all night, dominating the battlefield. I slept the entire day and didn't eat. Luckily, Chingo was probably too busy and didn't check up on me much. He just called once to remind me to take care of myself, saying he might not be able to contact me for a few days. He didn't explain why, and I assumed a few days meant just 1 or 2 days. On the third day of Chen Ji's business trip, I missed him because he didn't call. On the fourth day, I missed him again because he didn't call. On the fifth day, I couldn't help but call him. I knew he was busy and might not answer, but I hoped he would call back after seeing my missed call. But even by night, I hadn't received a call back. I went to the hospital to look for him. The doctors who knew him just told me he was on a business trip and wouldn't say more, citing confidentiality. What kind of confidential mission could a hospital have? My mind began to wander to worst-case scenarios, and I kept calling Chingo dozens, even hundreds of times, all to no answer. Later, his friend sent me a message. The hospital received a patient carrying the Middle East virus, and all the doctors involved in the treatment were quarantined. Even their phones were confiscated, and they were not allowed to contact the outside world. But don't worry, he'll be fine. Although I'm not in the medical field, I know enough to understand that during surgery, a scalpel can easily tear through a doctor's gloves and cut their fingers. If infected, I knew. Considering how seriously the hospital was treating it, the virus was almost 100% fatal. I forced myself not to think negatively, but my heart remained heavy. What if? I had known Chen since I was born. On our wedding day, my mom said we must have been destined from a past life to be together as husband and wife, never just as siblings. Being with him, I always thought the future was long, that we had endless time to spend together, to walk hand in hand through life slowly. Suddenly, I realized that in the face of illness and disaster, a lifetime could be very short, ending abruptly. I didn't believe in gods, but during those days, I went to the temple every day. I knelt on the prayer mat, trembling in front of the giant Buddha statue. I prayed, "Buddha, you who are compassionate, please let him come back to me, even if it means giving up my lifespan for his." If I could live to be 100, I would give Chen 50 years. If I could live 10 years, I would give him 5. Even if I only had a year, I would give him 6 months. I was willing to share every second with him. I forced myself to stay busy. Cleaning the house, cooking, changing the cat litter, leaving no free time for myself. Only at night, lying alone in bed, would I type out in the message box, "Please come back soon. I really miss you." The day Chen came back was actually no different from usual. The weather was just as good, with a clear, cloudless sky. I had just finished changing the cat litter and was about to go upstairs when I saw Chen walking towards me in his suit. In that moment, I couldn't hold back anymore, and tears started streaming down my face. I practically jumped into his arms, clinging to his neck like a koala. Chen lightly patted my back and told me to be mindful of our surroundings. I shook my head and said, "Chen, I haven't told you I love you yet, have I?" He froze, and I could see his eyes slowly fill with emotion. "Chen, I love you," I whispered into his ear. That night, as Chen and I lay side by side in bed, I said, "Chen, can you promise me something?" He asked, "What is it?" "Promise me you won't die before me, okay?" Chen was silent for a long time. Finally, he squeezed my hand tightly and said one word, "Okay."